Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The walls of the Chancellor Mansion had witnessed decades of scandals, betrayals, and revelations, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared Jill Abbott for the moment her world came crashing apart with a truth so shocking it felt like the ground split beneath her feet. For decades she held on to one unwavering certainty: Billy Abbott was her biological son. Their history was complicated, turbulent, and sometimes fraught with heartbreak, but he was hers. Her son. The one constant in a life full of shifting loyalties and simmering resentments. But now, as she stared at the DNA report in her trembling hands, her heart pounding against her ribs in a fierce, painful rhythm, Jill realized she had been living a lie. A cruelly orchestrated deception that had cost her years of connection she never even knew she'd been denied. The paper felt heavier with every passing second, the cold, clinical letters spelling out the truth that no mother should ever have to face. Probability of maternity, 99.998%, subject, Matthew Henderson. Her breath hitched. Her knees weakened. And there it was. The revelation that Matt, the mysterious, brooding outsider who had rolled into Genoa City with a haunted past and a chip on his shoulder, wasn't just another troubled soul crossing her orbit. He was her son. Her real son. The son who had been stolen from her. Switched. Hidden. And she, without knowing, had embraced another child as her own while her true flesh and blood grew up believing he had no one. The shock morphed into a devastating cocktail of grief and fury surging through Jill's veins like wildfire. Her memories scrambled wildly: Billy's childhood, the milestones she celebrated, the tears she shed, the arguments, the reconciliations, the nights she sat awake praying he'd find his way, all of it suddenly blurred with uncertainty, as if someone had taken a knife to the timeline of her life and sliced it straight down the center. How long had the truth been buried? Who knew? Who orchestrated this nightmare? Jill felt her pulse hammering as the implications wrapped around her throat like an invisible noose. Kay? Colin? Some long-dead scheme from a rival desperate to wound her? The possibilities spun out in dizzying circles, but the reality stayed the same. Everything she believed about her own motherhood had just crumbled to dust. It wasn't Billy who shared her blood, it was Matt. A lost son. A stranger she had unknowingly pushed, judged, and dismissed. And now she had to face the unbearable truth: he had suffered without her, grown up without her, survived without the love she would have given him from the moment he took his first breath. Across the room, Billy hovered in silent disbelief, the color draining from his face as the truth seeped into his bones. He had always known he didn't measure up to expectations, his addictions, his self-destructive tendencies, his chaotic impulses, but he thought at least one thing was certain: Jill was his mother. Her blood ran in his veins. Their bond, even when fragile, was unbreakable because it was biological, foundational. And now he was staring at the shattering of that identity. He felt adrift, disoriented, like someone had ripped the very definition of himself out of his hands. So what does this mean? Billy finally managed to croak, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes fixed on the report as though trying to rewrite its damning conclusion. What am I now? Some replacement? A consolation prize for the son you actually lost? His voice cracked at the end, a fissure of pain Jill had never heard before, not even during his darkest spirals. Jill's heart broke clean in half at the anguish in Billy's voice. No, she whispered, fierce and shaking. Billy, you are not, never were, a consolation prize. You are my son in every way that matters. I raised you. I loved you. I love you now. But even as she said it, guilt twisted inside her, because no matter how many times she insisted that Billy would always be her son, the undeniable biological truth stood between them like a wall of glass. A betrayal neither of them had chosen, but both now had to live with. Tears welled in Jill's eyes, spilling over as she reached for him, but Billy stepped back, pain etched into every line of his face. He wasn't rejecting her, not fully, but the wound was fresh, gaping, and bleeding with questions he didn't have the capacity to face yet. His entire life had been built on a false foundation. And now, he wondered whether every fight, every disappointment, every attempt at redemption had been rooted in a lie. If he wasn't Jill's biological son, then what else about his life might crumble under closer scrutiny? Then there was Matt, unaware, unprepared, and completely blindsided when Jill arrived at his apartment moments later with tears streaking her cheeks and the DNA report crumpled in her fist. He had always suspected that something about his past was wrong, that the story he'd been fed growing up didn't quite fit. His so-called mother had been distant, cold, sometimes even cruel. The man he believed was his father never looked at him without resentment, as if Matt himself were a living reminder of some tragedy he was never told about. He grew up searching for belonging, feeling like a puzzle piece jammed into the wrong box. And now Jill stood at his door, her voice trembling as she tried to say the words that would change both of their lives forever. "Matt, you're my son." For a moment, Matt didn't breathe. He didn't blink. He simply stared at Jill as if she were speaking a foreign language. Then, slowly, the truth seeped in, icy, surreal, and overwhelming. A bitter laugh escaped him, unsteady and disbelieving. "This some kind of joke?" he muttered, eyes shining with something between anger and heartbreak. Jill shook her head, thrusting the report toward him. "No joke. No trick. I would never, never, lie about something like this." Matt's eyes darted over the document, scanning the impossible truth. His chest constricted. And suddenly the world around him dimmed, the edges blurring as he tried to process what it meant. He wasn't who he thought he was. The people who raised him weren't his parents. His entire childhood, marked by loneliness and confusion, was the result of a cruel swap that had robbed him of the life he was meant to have. He felt rage burning beneath his skin, a wildfire of betrayal mixed with a grief so deep it made him feel hollow. "So, what?" he whispered. "Someone stole me from you? Someone decided to switch babies like this with some kind of game?" His voice shook with raw emotion. Jill nodded, tears sliding down her face. "Yes. Someone stole you. Someone took my son from me and replaced you with a child who wasn't mine. I don't know why. I don't know who. But I swear to you, Matt, I will find out. And they will answer for what they did." Her voice hardened, fueled by a mother's fury awakening after years of being denied her truth. Matt swallowed hard, overwhelmed, angry, and yet, for the first time, something inside him flickered with a strange, unfamiliar warmth, belonging. Real belonging. A sense that someone actually wanted him. Someone cared. Someone was devastated by the years they had lost. Jill reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted, but Matt didn't move. Her hand found his cheek, trembling, and he closed his eyes as a lifetime of longing cracked open. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was the beginning of something neither had dared to imagine. Back at the mansion, the fallout of the revelation rippled through Genoa City like a shockwave. News spread fast, faster than Jill could contain it, faster than Billy could cope, faster than Matt could process. Catherine's legacy, Jill's entire identity as a mother, even Billy's place in the Abbott family, all of it suddenly thrown into chaos. Jack Abbott, upon hearing the truth, felt his stomach drop. Billy might not share Jill's DNA, but he was still biologically an Abbott. Yet the emotional devastation hitting his brother cut Jack deeper than any corporate betrayal ever had. Billy looked at him with haunted eyes. "Jack, who am I?" he whispered. And for the first time in their complicated history, Jack had no answer. Because the truth was, Billy didn't know. And neither did anyone else. Meanwhile, the whispers throughout town only intensified. Abby, stunned. Devon, sympathetic toward Jill's heartbreak. Nikki and Victor quietly analyzing the ramifications, because secrets like these always came with consequences. Somewhere in the shadows, the true architect of the baby switch, whoever they were, was undoubtedly watching the chaos unfold with interest. But for Jill, none of that mattered right now. The only thing she cared about was rebuilding a bridge to the son she never got to raise, and holding on to the son she raised but now feared she might lose. Later, in the solitude of Chancellor Park, Jill finally let herself crumble. She sank onto a bench, burying her face in her hands, the losses hitting her all at once. Her heart ached for Matt, the boy stolen from her, the man shaped by years of neglect. But her heart also ached for Billy, who was suffering as deeply as she was. 2 sons. One shared pain. And she was caught in the middle of an impossible emotional storm. "I'm losing both of them," she whispered into the cold twilight air. "And I don't know how to save any of this." But Jill Abbott was nothing if not resilient. Grief might crush her for now, but her determination was forged in fire. She would uncover who stole her child. She would expose every lie, every manipulation, every hidden truth that led to this nightmare. And she would fight like hell, to keep both Matt and Billy in her life, no matter how complicated it became. Because love wasn't defined by blood alone. And motherhood, in all its messy, heartbreaking, beautiful chaos, was the one battle Jill refused to lose. Jill's revelation detonated through Genoa City like a blast wave, shaking every corner of the community with a force that left even the most unflappable residents stunned into silence. Overnight, whispers turned into full-fledged gossip, and gossip turned into widespread speculation about what really happened the night Jill's real son was taken from her. Some were sympathetic, others salivated at the scandal, but one thing was certain: this was no longer just a family crisis. This was a wildfire. And Jill, Billy, and Matt were caught directly in its center, 3 lost souls orbiting one another, each battling their own storm of grief, confusion, guilt, and abandoned identity. Back at the Chancellor Mansion, Jill paced the living room floor like a woman possessed. Even the luxurious decor, usually a source of pride, felt suffocating now, like gilded bars in a cage she couldn't break free from. Nina, who had rushed over the moment she heard the news, sat quietly on the edge of the sofa, watching her friend unravel. "Jill," she said softly, "you have to breathe." But Jill couldn't. Breathing felt impossible. Like her lungs were filled with cement. How could this happen? How could I not have known? How did I not feel that something was wrong? Jill's voice cracked, raw and hollow. She wrung her hands together as though trying to twist the truth into something more bearable. Billy was a difficult baby. He was colicky, he wasn't bonding with me, he cried constantly unless another nurse held him. And I chalked it all up to stress, Kay manipulating me fighting everyone, hormones, but what if it was because he wasn't mine? What if I felt it and ignored it? Tears streaked down her cheeks. How do you recover from missing something like that? Nina stood and wrapped her arms around Jill, grounding her. You didn't know. You couldn't know. You loved Billy, and he's your son, don't let anyone twist that. But Jill had already spiraled past that point, her mind drowning in memories, small, insignificant details now carrying a heavier weight than they ever should have. His eyes, Jill whispered. I always wondered why Billy's eyes looked so different. My mother's eyes were darker, mine are darker. I told myself genetics can be funny, but now I see it. Her voice trembled. And Matt has my eyes. The same shape. The same coloring. How did I not see it? Before Nina could respond, the door swung open and Chance entered, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. He had already begun digging into old records, quieted files, and any scrap of evidence that might explain how such a monumental switch could happen without anyone noticing. I checked the hospital archives, he announced. Most of the records from the night you gave birth were digitized, but some files are missing. Entire sections. And not just yours, several babies from that wing are unaccounted for. Jill felt her stomach twist painfully. So it wasn't an accident, she said, voice low and trembling. Someone intentionally took my son and replaced him with Billy. Chance nodded grimly. That's what it looks like. And whoever did this either had access, influence, or a motive that went far deeper than anyone realized. His jaw tightened. This wasn't some nurse's mistake. Someone orchestrated this. Jill sank onto the sofa as the implications crashed over her like icy water. If this was deliberate, then someone, an actual person, with a name, a face, and a reason, had stolen her baby from her arms. Someone had played God with the lives of two innocent children. And Jill wanted their name. She wanted the truth. And she wanted justice so fiercely it scorched her insides. At the Abbott mansion, meanwhile, the emotional fallout continued to ripple through Billy's world. Jack hovered, trying to offer support without smothering him, but Billy wasn't ready to be comforted. He sat rigid on the couch, staring blankly into the fireplace as though searching the flames for answers. "I've been an Abbott my whole life," he whispered finally. "But I thought I was half Chancellor too. I thought Jill's blood ran through me. That connection grounded me more than I ever admitted." His voice cracked. "Now it feels like everything's slipping through my fingers." Jack sat beside him, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "Billy, you are my brother. That never changes." But Billy's pain ran deeper than simple biology. His identity had always been fragile, shaped by addiction, guilt, turbulent relationships, and an endless desire to be loved without condition. And now, he felt like someone had stripped away one of the only truths he ever believed he had. "What if I was never meant to be in this family?" Billy murmured. "What if I was some accident, some replacement? What if none of this was supposed to be mine?" The vulnerability in his voice shattered Jack's heart. Billy had always struggled with feeling unwanted, unworthy. And this revelation fed every insecurity he had ever carried. "Listen to me," Jack said firmly. "Blood doesn't make a family. Loyalty does. Love does. You are an Abbott, my brother, Dad's son, part of this family in every way that matters." But Billy couldn't respond. The grief was too heavy. The storm too fierce. And the worst part, the part that gnawed at him, was that Matt now had something he never fully felt he did, a biological tie to Jill. What would that mean? Would Jill shift her heart toward Matt? Would their already complicated relationship fracture beyond repair? Back at Matt's apartment, he sat alone on the edge of his bed, the DNA report still open beside him. The room felt smaller now, suffocating, as if the truth itself was pressing against the walls. His entire life had been built on abandonment, every emotion shaped by the belief that he wasn't wanted. That he was unimportant. That he was a mistake. And now, somehow, that pain made even more sense. He flicked the edge of the report with his finger, jaw clenched. He wasn't angry at Jill. No, he saw the anguish in her eyes. The heartbreak. The years of maternal instinct that had unknowingly missed its mark. But he was angry at the universe. At fate. At the people who had allowed this to happen. And, quietly, beneath the anger, he was terrified. Terrified of wanting Jill's love. Terrified she might reject him when the initial shock wore off. Terrified he'd lose Billy's family, who, though strangers, were connected to him now in a way he wasn't sure how to navigate. His phone buzzed. A text from Jill, "Please. Come to the mansion. We need to talk. All of us. Together." Matt stared at the message for a long moment, unsettled. A meeting. With Jill. With Billy. With an entire family he wasn't part of yesterday. Anxiety churned in his stomach, but beneath it, hope flickered. A small, dangerous, fragile hope. When Matt finally arrived at the mansion, the tension in the air was so thick it felt almost solid. Billy stood by the fireplace, arms crossed tightly, his face a swirling mix of resentment and confusion. Jill hovered near the sofa, nervous, almost maternal in a way that surprised Matt, considering they had only just learned the truth. Chance and Nina lingered in the background, silent witnesses. Jill approached Matt slowly. "Thank you," she said softly, "for coming." She motioned toward a chair, but Matt remained standing. Billy eyed him with guarded curiosity, and beneath that, envy. Matt looked uncomfortable, but grounded. Billy felt like the imposter in the room. Jill clasped her hands, steadying herself. "I need both of you to hear this," she said. "Billy, you are my son, not biologically, but in every way that matters. Losing that truth doesn't undo the years we had. Then she turned to Matt, and her voice broke. But you're the son I was never allowed to love. The son I never got to hold. The one who was taken from me. Matt's throat tightened, but he said nothing. Jill stepped closer, emotion trembling in her voice. I want both of you in my life. I won't choose between you. I won't replace one with the other. I need both of you. Billy looked away, jaw tightening. Easier said than done, he muttered. You've had decades with me. He's had none.